Hey, I'm going to show you how I make my beats loud. Let's get into the video. I'm using Studio One. You can obviously do this in any DAW. I also got shredded recently for taking too long on my intros, so straight to the point. This is the beat. So it's relatively chill. I'm going to use Pro L by FabFilter. It's a limiter. I like to use limiters to make my beats loud. You can use clippers. I just prefer how a limiter compresses. That's just kind of my vibe, but either work fine. I'll also show using the Studio One default limiter. I prefer FabFilter, but you can do it with whatever. Important thing to keep in mind is you want something to show how loud it is, in my opinion. So I like FabFilter because it has this luff meter. When you click on this and you change it to loudness, it will show you the luffs. If you have a level meter like in Studio One and you go to this one and then you click that shows you luffs as well. And I'm aiming for about -8 to -10 luffs, generally speaking. That's nice and loud. And on the limiter, my ceiling is -0.1. So that is as loud as it's going to get in the peak. So let's just crank it up and see how we go. Okay, I'm at +8.6, which is quite a lot. The key thing here is just use your ears. If it sounds bad, it probably is bad. If it sounds okay, it's likely okay. But let's have a look at this visualizer, because what I'm seeing is the kick is way louder than everything else. And that's a problem because when I'm increasing that gain, the kick is the thing that's triggering it. If I turn the kick down, I'll be able to push the general volume up higher. So like a good balance and a good mix is going to allow you to go louder, easier. I could also turn everything else up because right now I've got quite a lot of headroom. I'm having to go +8.6. Like I could turn, rather than the kick up, turn everything else up, and then I'm going to have to do less work on the mix bus. So let's try that. I'm going to grab all of the instruments except for the kick and push them. Might turn the kick down a little bit. Alright, let's see how that balances. It's a subtle difference. Again, it's not quite there. Let's just try turning the kick down even more. And like I am kind of doing backwards mixing here. This isn't an ideal way to do it, but in the context of this video, this is just how I'm thinking if I'm trying to get something loud quickly. And again, I'm having to push it loud, so I can probably just turn everything else up. Maybe I'll just aim to get this to 0, since, you know, just keeping stuff at 0 is nice. That'll give me a little bit more wiggle room. And that is the clipping that's kind of happening, the distortion because of the limiter. So again, it's not perfect, but that is generally pretty loud. It's like -9-ish. I know I'm kind of reiterating this, but it is important to get the mix balance right. Right now, I need to go through and say on this pigments thing, clear out some of the lows, or the bass actually. things like low rumble that isn't necessarily audible, that's going to make it harder to get loud because you're going to be kind of trying to push that up, but that's sort of existing there. Same with all the other instruments, there'll be that kind of stuff. I'm not really compressing. I'd probably have bus compression going on. I'd probably have a compressor before the limiter, just to sort of take off a bit of those kicks, because chances are my kick is probably going to be the loudest because I like to hear the kick and have that pulse, but I might just want to take off a little bit of the peak of that kick, if you know what I mean. Just to kind of do something similar, let's just get the limiter by Studio One, which I don't really know how to use, but it's generally pretty similar. I do the ceiling at the same spot, minus 0.1. This has gain and a threshold. I would probably just try the gain, see what happens. So this is where you'd want the level meter to actually see what you're doing. Also managed to get that pretty loud, kind of minus 9.8 lufs as the peak, but it was a little bit more like gritty. You could kind of hear it starting to fall apart, partly because I don't know how to use this limiter, as in like I haven't tested it to sort of see what I think feels good. Also, the Fab filter is just a particularly transparent limiter, like you can get it pretty loud without hearing too much of that like kind of stuff. It's different limiters have different vibes, but that is how I would do it. If you're using a clipper, like standard clip, also need a level meter here. I don't tend to do this on like my master, but I think if I was going to do it, this would be how I would. So I've got a 5% saturation, oversampling times 4 generally is pretty good. I've turned the ceiling on at minus 0.2, again hoping that I'm going to push it, and that is as loud as it's going to go in terms of the peak. Next, I'm probably just going to turn this gain up and see what the clipping does. That's pretty loud. I'm not loving it, if I'm being honest. It is sounding a little bit like I'm losing transients, like I'm losing the punch of the kick because it's cutting them off. Again, I don't really do this, so I'm not particularly proficient in it, but I would probably do this to a lesser degree and then go into a limiter if I wanted to get kind of the peak, the optimal kind of loudness. Take off some of the clips with clipping and then limit the sort of things that get through, kind of a dual process. But yeah, that is how I make my beats loud. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. If you need a mixing engineer or a producer, you can check out some of my work on my website, which is linked below. And if you use Studio One, there's also some free presets and templates that you can also get for free, as I just said free a lot of times, but link in the description. Catch you next video. Bye.